I was hurt, I was bitter, and I was ready to shoot. I was ready to shoot.
Behind every gang, there are women whose stories rarely make the spotlight. Yet when they do, the interviews can turn unsettling. These 8 disturbing moments show women balancing survival with brutality, sharing how gangs shape their lives. Some reveal cold truths while others lose patience fast. What unfolds is raw and impossible to ignore, but none of it compares to the chaos caught on tape when a young artist faced reporters after a massive gang sweep. Number 7. Rita Gigante. When the daughter of a mob boss speaks, you expect secrets. What you may not expect is the emotion. That was the atmosphere when Rita Gigante, daughter of notorious mob boss Vincent the Chin Gigante.
She is the daughter of the former head of the Genovese crime family.
Sat down to talk about her life inside one of America's most feared mafia families. The interviewer, Mark Lyda, did not push or provoke. He barely interrupted at all. Yet as her memories surfaced, her tone shifted more than once. There were moments where frustration, anger, and pain rose to the surface. It was not an explosive meltdown, but her voice and expressions carried weight. Rita began with the struggles of her childhood. At just 7 years old, she described being groped by a school crossing guard.
And, I'm 7 years old. And I told my mom, I said, he groped me. He did it in a very disgusting way.
She explained how she begged her mother to tell her father, but her mother refused, afraid of how he might react. Rita said that moment left her feeling invisible. Her voice rose slightly as she explained how wrong it felt to be ignored, and how she thought to herself that no one was hearing her, not even her own family. You could feel the anger still present in the way she spoke about it even after so many years. It was controlled, but it was sharp.
The way for me to heal myself and hopefully even my family members, but then I wanted to take something very personal to me.
Her teenage years carried more outward defiance. At 16, Rita remembered getting into a fight in a school bathroom with a girl who mocked her family. She said she had reached her breaking point after repeated insults. As a result, she attacked her classmate. As she described it, her tone lifted, almost reliving the rage she had felt that day. She admitted afterward that she hated herself for losing control, but the anger in the retelling showed how raw the memory still was. In that moment of the interview, it was as though the past Rita and the present Rita stood side by side.
This is what happens in that lifestyle, though. I want everybody to understand. This is what happens in that lifestyle.
Not all of her intensity came from anger. Some of it came from heartbreak. At 19, she revealed her sexuality to her father. She described what happened when he rejected her. According to her, the denial caused her to cry uncontrollably and even become physically sick. In the interview, she explained that it had been both a release and a painful collapse. Her words were calm, but the strain was clear. You could imagine the scene she was painting of a teenager breaking down because the person she wanted acceptance from most could not give it. These moments, though controlled, gave the interview an undercurrent of tension. Rita never screamed at Mark Lyda, and she never cursed him out. Yet the raised voice when talking about childhood.
All I'm seeing is this man being beat. He's bleeding. The blood is coming towards me. I start to shake.
The heat in her retelling of the fight and the distress when remembering her father's reaction all played into the theme of how past wounds resurface when questions press into the right places. By the time she described her journey to healing, working as a massage therapist and later publishing her book, The Godfather's Daughter.
You all know about my book, at least most of you do, The Godfather's Daughter, An Unlikely Story of Love, Healing, and Redemption.
The earlier bursts of anger made sense. They were not random flare-ups, but echoes of a life where fear and silence often left her cornered. This balance is what made the interview compelling. On one hand, you had the daughter of a mafia boss describing the violence, anger, and heartbreak that shaped her. On the other, you had a woman who turned pain into something meant to help others. The cracks of frustration and raised tones showed that her past never truly left her. Number 6. Compton's Rambo. The camera was rolling, the interviewer's voice steady, but the woman across from him didn't flinch. When he asked if she had shot someone, she shrugged and answered that people said she had.
I was hurt, I was bitter, and I was ready to shoot. I was ready to kill you.
When pressed about whether stick-ups, robberies, and drive-bys were right or wrong, she admitted they were wrong. However, she argued that survival forced people to make those choices. She explained that once you got used to pulling the trigger, it became less difficult. For her, firing a gun eventually felt calming, especially when aimed at rivals. This woman was Sylvia Nunn, better known on the streets of Compton as Rambo, and this old interview gave a glimpse of her mindset.
I'm laying up in my bed, and I hear all these gunshots, and I took off running.
Years later, in 2008, the History Channel series Gangland would revisit her story. Sylvia's journey began far from the chaos of the streets. She was born on June 9, 1962, into a middle-class African-American family in Compton. Her parents worked tirelessly to provide for her and her siblings. Sylvia even recalled that her family was considered upper class and that she had a new car every year.
We were a high-class, upper black family. I had a new car every year.
Her father, Willie Nunn, was a professional boxer. He taught Sylvia skills that would serve her later in ways he could never have imagined. How to fight, how to handle a gun, and how to stand up for herself. But in 1973, Willie was convicted of drug possession and sent to prison. Without him, the household quickly unraveled. By the mid-70s, Compton had become a battleground for gangs, with the Bloods and Crips clashing almost daily. Sylvia's brother, Marcus, joined the Looters Park Piru set of the Bloods and earned the nickname China Dog. Wanting to prove herself, Sylvia joined him in a gas station robbery. She took the money, demanded her share, and proved she wasn't just tagging along.
Mom was like, that y'all gonna give me some money too. And they was like, damn, this is a crazy ass little girl.
From that moment, the Nunn home became a central hangout for the Bloods. It also made them a target for rivals. Sylvia, however, showed no fear. When a police officer disrespected her mother, she lashed out at him. It was then she earned the name Rambo. Her loyalty was brutal. She once said if anyone harmed her family, she would retaliate by targeting the attacker's relatives. In 1979, Marcus was shot by Crips but survived. Sylvia, furious, armed herself with her father's gun and joined her brother's crew in a revenge attack. For her, violence became second nature.
My brother's fight is my fight. I am my brother's keeper.
As the 1980s unfolded, crack cocaine hit Compton hard. Women like Sylvia were pulled deeper into the game. She admitted that being high made it easier to without hesitation.
When I was high on crack, it was easier for me to shoot you and don't care.
By then, female gang members were no longer just connected through boyfriends or brothers. They were motivated by fast money and quick access to drugs. In 1991, Sylvia was arrested on a warrant. Instead of going to prison, she agreed to cooperate with police by sharing information about her gang's operations. But tragedy struck months later when her oldest brother was shot and killed. He had not been in a gang. Sylvia blamed herself, believing his death might have been payback for her actions.
Please don't tell me nobody killed Marcus. She said no. And I said, oh, don't tell me my daddy dead. I'm already crying.
Her world spiraled. Addiction consumed her, and she only began to recover after moving to Nevada in 1993 to care for her ailing father. There, she married a former sheriff and embraced church life, leaving the gang world behind. Her story showed how far female gang members could go and how they responded when pushed too far. Number 5. Andrea Giovino. It is one thing to sit down for an interview, but it is another to meet a guest who refuses to let questions slide without a fight. Andrea Giovino made that clear as she sat across from James English in a podcast that ran more than an hour. Giovino, a former associate of New York's organized crime scene, carried with her a life shaped by poverty, survival, and her connections to figures like John Gotti and Sammy Gravano. The conversation touched on her upbringing in Brooklyn and the abusive relationships that kept her bound to the mafia world. It also covered her eventual shift into podcasting, writing, and advocacy. But what stood out most were the moments when her calm composure cracked and her anger cut through. One of those moments came early when she spoke about jealous men in the crime genre who tried to discredit her. She raised her voice, swore openly, and accused them of being unable to handle a woman strong enough to rival their reputations. She even pointed to appearances on mainstream outlets like 60 Minutes and Netflix as proof that her story was valid.
Maneuver in a world where you don't have anything, but you want things, and you learn how to get them.
It was sharp, unfiltered, and fiery, with the host letting her vent without interruption. When recounting her younger years, she admitted that violence often came naturally. In one nightclub incident, she remembered pushing a table onto 2 women and swinging a bottle in rage. John Gotti himself tried to restrain her, but she shouted back that she wasn't on his payroll and didn't owe him compliance. Though she recounted it with a calm tone, the memory carried traces of the same defiance that showed up in the interview. But Andrea's anger was not constant. There were moments of exhaustion too, especially when she spoke about living under threats while trying to raise her children.
I was born and raised in Brooklyn. I'm one of 10 children. I came from a background of poverty.
She confessed to James English that she reached a point where she didn't care about anyone else. The stress had worn her down, and the only focus left in her life was protecting her kids. Later, when the topic shifted back to professional rivalries, Andrea's voice rose again. She called her critics jealous bastards and vowed she wouldn't be forced out of the arena she had carved for herself. The tension reached another peak when James asked about opinions voiced by Sammy Gravano and Michael Franzese. Andrea snapped back without hesitation, calling Gravano a liar, and dismissed Franzese as someone unqualified to speak on her life. She showed her irritation not only with their words, but also with the very idea that they could question her. Through it all, James English stayed measured. He never escalated the energy. Yet the push and pull between calm questions and fiery answers created an interview that never felt flat. Her mix of defiance, frustration, and exhaustion showed why interviews like this can quickly turn into confrontations. Number 4. Jackie Montanez. Sometimes the sharpest reactions in interviews come not from shouting, but from the cold edge of honesty. That was the case when Jackie Montanez, better known as Loka, sat across from DJ Vlad. Vlad, a Ukrainian-American interviewer and journalist, is known for pressing hard with his questions.
So you were born in 1976 and grew up in Chicago. What part of Chicago did you actually grow up in?
Jackie did not explode, but her tone and words pushed back whenever she felt the weight of disrespect. DJ Vlad responded to Loca D's pushbacks in the interview with a generally respectful and accommodating approach. He acknowledged her corrections or boundaries before moving to related questions to keep the conversation flowing. That tension gave her interview its power. Jackie's life began in Puerto Rico in 1976, but she was raised in Chicago, a city where gang violence shaped entire neighborhoods. She lived with her mother and stepfather, who was a high-ranking Latin king. By the early 1980s, the environment at home turned into a nightmare. Jackie revealed that her stepfather not only abused her physically, but also introduced her to drugs, including cocaine. In 1986, she suffered an overdose that sent her to the hospital. Child Protective Services stepped in, yet no action followed. Jackie believed even the authorities were too afraid of her stepfather to intervene. By the time she was 12, her mother discovered the abuse, but fearing for her own life, placed Jackie into foster care. Jackie did not last long there. Within months, she ran away and found herself on the streets. Eventually, she joined the maniac Latin disciples, fierce rivals of the Latin kings. To be accepted, she had to endure a brutal initiation. She was given a choice between a longer beating with her face covered or a shorter one without protection.
Well, actually, I was beaten. My violation actually they gave me like a 3-minute head to toe.
She chose to face her attackers head on. Life in the gang was violent and relentless. Jackie revealed she was arrested multiple times for drug dealing, attempted murder, and aggravated battery. Despite being a minor, she earned enough money selling drugs to buy a car and rent her own apartment. Many people around her had no idea she was underage. On May 10, 1992, tragedy struck. Her close friend Ismael Torres, a deaf boy from the neighborhood, was killed by the Latin kings. Though he was not in a gang, his friendship with Jackie and the maniacs made him a target. He was shot while waiting in Jackie's car for a ride to school. 2 days later, Jackie and two friends, Marilyn Molero and Madeline Mendoza, planned to retaliate. Their target was Hector Reyes, the man responsible for Torres's death. Alongside James Cruz, another Latin king, he invited the girls to a gathering. The girls pretended to go along, but when Reyes followed Jackie to a bathroom and tried to assault her, she pulled out a pistol and shot him. Cruz rushed to the scene and drew his weapon, but Jackie fired first, killing him instantly. At just 15, she had taken 2 lives in the span of minutes. At the time, she felt no remorse, convinced it was justice for Torres. Looking back decades later, she admitted the truth. She was only a child acting out of rage. The trio fled thinking they were safe, but word of what happened spread quickly. Within months, Jackie was arrested. She was convicted of 2 counts of murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole, the first female juvenile in Chicago to face that sentence. Years later, the Supreme Court ruled such sentences unconstitutional. Jackie's sentence was reduced to 71 years. Life inside prison was harsh. She crafted weapons to survive fights and endured devastating loss when her mother died 16 years into her term. That grief pushed her to change. She earned a GED and became a certified dog groomer. In 2022, after more than 3 decades, Jackie walked free. Adjusting to life outside has been difficult. She works 2 jobs and still feels judged by her past. Yet she values small freedoms most people overlook.
If he blessed me, I'll bless somebody else. And I was given my second chance at freedoms.
Jackie now attends counseling, works on forgiving herself, and has found love in her marriage. She reflected on her past by saying she had been a child who thought revenge was cool. But today, she gives to those in need and embraces a new way of living. Number 3. Mafia Princess. Some interviews pull you in not because of loud outbursts, but because of the way emotions slip through when old wounds are pressed. James English witnessed this firsthand with Marissa Marico, better known as the Mafia Princess.
But my story about the Mafia, and it's the proper Mafia, it's the Italian Mafia, it's not.
Born into the criminal empire built by her father, Emilio Di Giovine, Marissa grew up determined to prove she could match any man in her world.
So she went out late 60s to Milan to be an au pair. Met my father in 1970, I came along.
At just 18, she ran guns, carried bundles of cash for cannabis, and even hid money on her body to smuggle it past watchful eyes. Violence touched her personal life as well. At her wedding, when she was pregnant with her first child, rival hitmen were sent to kill her father. By 22, after Emilio was arrested, she was helping to run the family's operations, dealing with money laundering and drug trafficking. During the interview, James pressed her on these chapters, and Marissa stayed calm, though there were moments where the pressure clearly showed. Around 37 minutes in, she described an incident where teenagers trespassed on her property and hurled insults. One called her a pedophile. Marissa's composure cracked as she recalled shouting back in anger, telling them she had already served 4 years in prison and would not take such disrespect. Her frustration was sharp, and even though it was a memory, you could sense how raw that confrontation had been. Isn't this the kind of pushback that makes you wonder how someone with her past balances restraint with explosive anger? Later in the conversation, the mask slipped in a different way. Speaking about Frank Burley, a man she loved and lost when he was shot dead, she broke down. Pregnant at the time, she admitted she never got over that loss and decided in that moment never to date another criminal. Her voice wavered as she apologized for the tears. The most powerful shift came when the subject turned to her son. With sudden firmness, she explained how she had pulled him away from negative influences. Her tone hardened as she made it clear that no one was ever going to harm her child. It was not a shout, but the steel in her words left no doubt she meant it. By the end, emotions cut even deeper. Marissa revealed she still dreamed of her father being chased and shot, images tied to Frank's death. She admitted she felt destroyed after prison, surviving only because of her children. Then came her most vulnerable confession. She said she could barely cry anymore, wishing she could release emotions like she once did. It was a confession that struck differently, showing that even without raising her voice at the interviewer, her battles were still being fought inside. Number 2, Tracy Miller. Trouble in the streets of South London shaped the life of Tracy Miller, and her interview shows just how easily a young girl could be pulled into violence. Tracy explained that her destructive behavior started when she was still a child. At the time, she was living with her manic depressive mother and 3 siblings. Her father was already serving a life sentence, and the house felt unstable. She revealed that the first time she picked up a knife was because a man in her home, whom she described as a pedophile, made her feel unsafe. She was afraid to tell her mother because of her condition. When she overheard that the man had touched another family member, she kept the knife under her pillow at night. That same knife was still with her when a fight at school erupted.
I had a fight with a girl next year up to me. Everyone heard about it, so I kind of got popular from that.
Tracy said she brought a friend home one day and her mother went through an episode in front of her. The friend shared what happened with everyone at school. Embarrassed and angry by this, Tracy felt like she wanted to kill her. She carried the knife to school and tried to stab the girl, but her classmates stopped her. The incident led to her expulsion. At the next school, her reputation had already spread. Known as the girl with the knife, Tracy leaned into the image. She admitted she did not mean to become that kind of person, but with others following her lead, the adrenaline made her keep going. She explained that children are shaped by their environment and parents must take that seriously. Her life spiraled further when she joined a gang. She became a leader in the younger 28s and took part in robberies against shops, off licenses, and even ice cream vans. Nights became so dangerous that she kept a handgun by her bed. But Tracy noted that gangs now are even more out of control compared to her time. The breaking point came during the Brixton riots of 1995. She recalled standing in a looted area when someone turned with a sawn-off shotgun. The blast lit up the night sky. She rolled under a car, but it was too late. She had been shot. The pain hit her moments later, feeling as though her leg had been torn away. She still has ball bearings lodged in her body from that night. That moment, combined with a difficult relationship and eventually becoming pregnant, forced her to change. Tracy overdosed at one point, but it marked the end of her destructive momentum. From then on, she chose a different path. Today, she mentors troubled youth across London and visits young offender units. She even co-wrote a play about violence and released a memoir to help steer others away from the life she once lived.
This wasn't like that, this was a collaboration. So it's very much her input alongside mine.
Her interview was calm, but it carried weight, and it raises the question: if the interviewer had crossed a line, would that calm have held or shattered in an instant? Number 1. The gang leader behind the mic. Before sunrise in July 31, 2024, the Bronx turned into the center of one of New York City's biggest gang crackdowns. The NYPD launched a pre-dawn manhunt aimed at some of the city's most violent crews, sweeping up nearly 24 suspects tied to serious crimes including murder. Each arrest was caught on camera as officers led young men and women out in handcuffs, their ages ranging anywhere from just 16 to 26. But the cameras did not only capture arrests, they also caught the rage that came with them. As the suspects were escorted past reporters, many hurled curses and insults, refusing to stay quiet.
For nearly 24 gang members wanted for serious felonies, including murder.
Among them was one name that stood out: 18-year-old rapper Nay Benz.
Known as drill rapper Nay Benz, investigators say she was one of the leaders.
The scene grew tense when a reporter shouted a pointed question at her, asking if it was true, as police claimed that she was a trigger puller. Rather than give an answer, she snapped back with profanity.
Police say you're a trigger puller. Is that true? What? Police say you're a trigger puller.
It showed just how explosive these moments could become when questions cut too close. But who exactly is Nay Benz? Her real name is Nadine Asamoah, and according to police, she was not just another gang member. She was said to be the head of the Slattery Gang, a feared group in the Fordham section of the Bronx. The crew, sometimes called Slaughtery or S-Block, has been accused of terrorizing their neighborhood, with police linking them to more than a dozen shootings and attempted murders. Authorities allege that under Benz's leadership, the group left a trail of fear in their own community. Her path through the system had already been turbulent. After serving time at Brookwood Juvenile Facility upstate, she was arrested again just months later. This time, she faced a 176-count conspiracy indictment. Prosecutors claim she not only participated in violent crimes, but also used her music to promote them, lacing her drill rap tracks with details of alleged offenses. Despite the accusations, Benz had built an audience. Her songs gained millions of views, making her a rising figure in the drill rap scene. Supporters argued that she was simply telling her truth, while critics said the music was an extension of the violence on the streets. In an interview with the platform What NYC Sounds Like a few months before her arrest, Benz spoke about her release from jail. She described her neighborhood as the real definition of loyalty, but she avoided talking directly about the shootings. Investigators, however, painted a much darker picture. They accused the crew of firing into playgrounds, even near school buses with children present. In one case, a 9-year-old boy had to dial 911 because he found himself caught in the middle of their gunfire. Police officials emphasized that their goal was not to silence drill music, but to curb the violence that some groups carried out alongside it. As one official explained, 19 of those arrested were repeat shooters, some acting as though it were a competition to fire the most bullets. It was this mix of crime, music, and defiance in front of cameras that made moments like Benz's outburst unforgettable. The anger she showed when confronted by reporters reflected the same fearless image that authorities say fueled her rise. If you want to keep exploring stories like this, remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.